Dad, there's someone at the door for you. I'll never forget the way my father's hand froze midair, his teacup trembling slightly as those words left my mouth. It was a Sunday afternoon in early March, the kind of day where everything feels peaceful and ordinary. But the moment I saw the man standing on our porch, I knew our ordinary day was about to become anything but. The man was thin, weathered, his clothes hanging loose on his frame. His face was lined with years of hardship, eyes sunken and desperate. But I recognized him instantly from the old photographs my father kept locked away in his study. Photographs I wasn't supposed to see. It was Raghav, the man who destroyed everything. Before I tell you what happened next, don't forget to subscribe if you love true stories like this, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if this happened to you? Would you open the door to the person who ruined your life? My father set down his teacup with deliberate care. He didn't ask me who it was. Somehow, I think he already knew. Let him in, he said quietly. Dad, are you sure? Do you know who? I know exactly who it is, Beta. Let him in. I hesitated at the doorway, studying the broken man before me. This was Raghav? The same man whose name had been spoken like a curse in our household for decades? He looked nothing like the villain I'd imagined all these years. He looked defeated. Come in, I said, my voice harder than I intended. Raghav stepped inside, his movements slow and careful, like a man walking through a minefield. His eyes darted around our modest home, the worn furniture, the family photos on the walls, the simple curtains my mother had stitched by hand. When his gaze finally landed on my father, something broke in his expression. Mahesh Bhai. His voice cracked. I don't have the right to be here. My father stood up from his chair. He was 73 years old, his hair completely white now, his back slightly bent from decades of hard labor. But in that moment, he stood with a dignity that made him seem 10 feet tall. You're right, my father said simply. You don't. The silence that followed was suffocating. To understand what happened that day, you need to know our story. You need to know what Raghav took from us. 25 years ago, my father was a different man. Younger, full of dreams, with a thriving textile business in Mumbai. He and Raghav had been partners since college. More than business partners, they were brothers. My earliest memories are of Raghav at our dinner table, laughing with my parents, bringing me toys, teaching me to fly kites on the terrace. Uncle Raghav, I used to call him. He was family. The business was doing well. Really well. My father handled the creative side, the designs, the client relationships, the vision. Raghav managed the finances, the operations, the day-to-day running of things. It was a perfect partnership, or so we all believed. We lived in a nice apartment in Bandra. I went to a good school. My mother wore beautiful saris and hosted dinner parties. We were happy, comfortable, secure. Tone shifts darker. But Raghav wanted more. I was 12 when I first sensed something was wrong. My parents whispered conversations late at night. My father coming home with tension carved into his face. Bills piling up on the kitchen table. It's just a rough patch, my mother would say, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The market will recover. But it wasn't the market. One evening, I heard my father on the phone in his study. His voice was strained, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. Raghav, where is the money? The suppliers haven't been paid in 3 months. They're threatening to take us to court. What do you mean you don't know? You handle the accounts. There was a long silence. Then my father's voice, quieter now, dangerous. How much is missing? Another silence. 40 lakhs? 40 lakhs? I pressed myself against the wall outside his study, my heart pounding. 40 lakhs was everything. Our savings. Our future. Our security. The next few weeks were a blur of confrontations and revelations. Raghav claimed he'd invested the money in a venture that went bad. He swore he'd pay it back. He came to our apartment with tears in his eyes, touching my father's feet, begging for forgiveness. Mahesh Bhai, I made a mistake. Give me 6 months. I'll fix this. I promise. My father, always the trusting one, always seeing the best in people, agreed. That was his first mistake. Because Raghav wasn't planning to fix anything. He was planning his escape. Within a month, we discovered the truth. There was no failed investment. Raghav had been siphoning money from the business for over a year. He'd forged my father's signature on loan documents, mortgaged company assets without permission, and transferred funds to offshore accounts. But the worst part? He'd been planning to start his own competing textile business the whole time. Using our money, our designs, our client list. The man we trusted like family had been systematically destroying us while smiling to our faces. When my father finally confronted him with the evidence, bank statements, forged documents, testimony from employees Raghav had tried to poach, do you know what Raghav said? Business is business, Mahesh. You were too soft. Too trusting. Someone had to make the hard decisions. Then he disappeared. The lawsuits came quickly after that. Suppliers demanding payment. Banks calling in loans my father never knew existed. Clients leaving because they'd heard we were going bankrupt. And we were. Within 6 months, we lost everything. The business. Our apartment. My school. My mother's jewelry. The pieces her mother had given her, the ones she'd planned to pass to me someday. All sold to pay debts we didn't even incur. We moved to a small 2-room flat in the suburbs. My father took whatever work he could find, freelance design consultation, teaching at a small institute, eventually working as a clerk in someone else's textile shop. The same shops where he used to be welcomed as a respected businessman now saw him as just another employee. My mother never complained. Not once. She took in sewing work, stitching blouses for neighborhood women, her fingers bleeding from needle pricks late into the night. But the worst part wasn't the poverty. It was watching my father's spirit break, piece by piece, day by day. The man who used to wake up excited about new designs now dragged himself to work like he was carrying the weight of the world. The man who used to tell me stories and teach me about fabrics and colors now sat silently at dinner, pushing food around his plate. I watched him age 10 years in the span of 2. I grew up angry, furious, burning with a rage that had nowhere to go. Every time I saw other kids with new books and I had to use torn second-hand ones, I thought of Raghav. Every time my mother's health deteriorated because she couldn't afford proper medical care, I thought of Raghav. Every time I saw my father's defeated posture as he left for that clerk job, I thought of Raghav. Dad, why didn't you fight harder? I asked him once, when I was 17. Why did you just let him get away with it? My father looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something I didn't understand until much, much later. Because, Beta, some battles you fight with your hands, and some battles you fight by living well and with integrity. Raghav will face his own consequences. That's not our burden to carry. But he's out there living a good life with our money, I protested. While we're stuck here struggling. Is he? My father asked quietly. Are you sure about that? I didn't know what he meant. And I was too angry to care. Which brings us back to that Sunday afternoon. 25 years after he destroyed our lives, Raghav stood in our living room, looking like a ghost of the man I remembered. I wanted to throw him out. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to grab him by his collar and toss him onto the street. But my father's calm gaze held me in place. Why are you here, Raghav? My father asked. Raghav's shoulders shook. He looked down at his feet, unable to meet my father's eyes. I have nothing left, Mahesh Bhai. Nothing. My business failed. My wife left me. My children won't speak to me. I lost the house, the cars, everything. I'm living in a small rental room, working odd jobs just to eat one meal a day. And you came here for what? I interrupted, my voice sharp. Sympathy? Money? You have some nerve. I came to apologize, Raghav said, his voice barely above a whisper. I came to tell you that you were right. About everything. That I was wrong. That I destroyed the best friendship I ever had for money that brought me nothing but misery. I came to say, I'm sorry. I know it changes nothing. I know it's too late. But I had to say it before He trailed off, but the implication was clear. This was a man at the end of his rope. My father was quiet for a long time. Then he gestured to the sofa. Sit down, Raghav. Dad, what are you? I started, but he raised his hand. Please, Beta. Let me handle this. Raghav sat, looking confused and wary. My father lowered himself into his chair with a small grunt. His knees weren't what they used to be. You know, Raghav, my father began. I knew everything you were doing long before you disappeared. Raghav's head snapped up, his eyes wide. What? The account irregularities. The forged signatures. The meetings with our competitors. I knew. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Dad, what are you talking about? My father continued, his gaze fixed on Raghav. One of our accountants came to me 6 months before everything fell apart. He showed me the discrepancies. I hired a private investigator. I knew every move you were making. Then why didn't you stop me? Raghav whispered. Why did you let me ruin you? This was the question I'd been screaming in my head. Why? Why would he knowingly allow this betrayal? My father's next words made my blood run cold. Because of your family, Raghav. Your wife was pregnant with your second child. My father continued softly. Your daughter Priya, she was only 4 years old. I remembered how she used to play in our office, how she called me Mahesh uncle and asked me to bring her sweets. Raghav's face crumbled. I also knew something you probably thought I didn't know. Your mother needed a heart surgery. Expensive. Critical. If you got arrested for fraud and embezzlement, your family would have had nothing. Your pregnant wife. Your young daughter. Your sick mother. They would have been destroyed. So I let you take the money. I let you disappear. I took the fall for everything, the debts, the lawsuits, the bankruptcy. I told everyone it was my mismanagement, my failed investments. I protected your name so your family wouldn't suffer for your sins. I couldn't breathe. My father had known. He'd known everything and had chosen to sacrifice himself, our family, our entire life, for the family of the man who betrayed him. But why? Raghav sobbed, his face in his hands. Why would you do that for me after what I did to you? My father's voice was gentle, almost tender. Not for you, Raghav. For them. Your mother, who treated me like a son when I first came to Mumbai. Your wife, who was innocent. Your children, who deserved a chance at life without their father's crimes hanging over them. And maybe a part of me hoped that carrying that guilt would teach you something I never could. That money means nothing if you lose your soul getting it. Raghav was on his knees now, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't know. I thought you were just weak. Just naive. I thought I was smarter than you. You were smarter, my father agreed. At stealing money. But you were never wise, Raghav. Wisdom isn't about how much you can take. It's about how much you can give, even when it costs you everything. I felt tears streaming down my face. All those years of watching my parents struggle, all that anger I'd carried, all the resentment toward my father for not fighting back, and now I understood. He had fought. Just not in the way I'd expected. Your mother. I finally managed to speak. Did the surgery happen? Raghav nodded, unable to speak. She lived another 12 years, my father said quietly. I kept track. I wanted to make sure my sacrifice meant something. And your wife? I asked Raghav, my anger deflating into something like pity. Your children? They're well, Raghav choked out. Both children graduated from good colleges. Got good jobs. My wife remarried after our divorce, to a good man. They're all fine. Better off without me. Because of the choices you made, my father said firmly. Not because of the money you stole. The money I let you take gave them a chance. But you're the one who squandered it. You're the one who let greed consume you until there was nothing left. You know what the difference between us is, Raghav? My father asked. I lost everything material and still had my family's love, my integrity, my peace of mind. You gained everything material and lost your family's respect, your self-worth, your peace. So tell me, who really won? Raghav had no answer. What answer could there be? My father stood up slowly, joints creaking. He walked over to where Raghav knelt and did something I never expected. He placed his hand on Raghav's head. A blessing. A forgiveness. Go home, Raghav. Make peace with your children. Apologize to your ex-wife, not for money, but for the years you wasted chasing it. Spend whatever time you have left being the man you should have been all along. But Mahesh Bhai, how can you just forgive me like this? After everything? Because holding on to anger would make me as trapped as you've been all these years, my father said simply. I forgave you a long time ago, Raghav. Not because you deserved it, but because I deserve peace. The question is, can you forgive yourself? Raghav left our home that evening a different man than he'd arrived. Not healed. Healing takes longer than one conversation, but perhaps with the first seed of redemption planted in his heart. After he was gone, I sat with my father on our small balcony. The sun was setting over the city, painting everything in shades of gold and orange. Dad, I said quietly, all these years I thought you were weak for not fighting back. I was angry at you. I know, Beta. I could see it in your eyes. But you were the strongest person in this whole story. You chose to protect innocent people at the cost of everything you had. That's not weakness. That's superhuman. My father smiled, that gentle smile that I'd seen weather every storm. Not superhuman. Just human. Being human means sometimes you have to make hard choices that no one will understand. That no one will thank you for. You do them anyway because they're right. Did you ever regret it? Your choice? He thought about this for a long moment. Sometimes, late at night when your mother was crying because she couldn't afford medicine, yes. I questioned it. But regret? No. Because I can look at myself in the mirror. I can sleep at night. I didn't become the villain to punish the villain. The world already has enough darkness, Beta. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to add to it. In the days that followed, something shifted in our home. My father seemed lighter somehow, as if a weight he'd been carrying for 25 years had finally been lifted. He told my mother about Raghav's visit. She cried, not from anger or sadness, but from a kind of bittersweet relief. I always wondered, she said, if you'd made the right choice. Watching you suffer, watching our sons struggle. I wondered if protecting them was worth this price. And now? My father asked. Now I know that you did what only a truly good man could do. You saved a family that wasn't even yours. That takes a kind of strength most people don't have. She kissed his forehead, and in that gesture, I saw their entire marriage, all the struggles, all the sacrifices, all the quiet moments of choosing each other, and choosing what was right over what was easy. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about my father's revelation. I started piecing together memories I'd long forgotten or never fully understood. The year everything fell apart, I remembered my father making mysterious phone calls, speaking in low tones about arrangements, and making sure they're taken care of. I remembered him visiting certain lawyers, not just for our bankruptcy proceedings, but for other matters he never discussed. I remembered the way he'd carefully cut out newspaper articles about Raghav's new business ventures, storing them in a folder in his desk. Not with anger, but with something that looked like concern. One day, I finally asked him, "Dad, during all those years, you were keeping track of Raghav and his family?" "Of course," he said simply. "I needed to know if my sacrifice was worth it. If his mother got her surgery. If his children were okay. If my suffering had meaning. And did it have meaning? His mother lived to see both grandchildren graduate college. His daughter is now a doctor. His son is an engineer. Yes, Beta. It had meaning. What my father didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was how his choice had rippled out beyond Raghav's family. A few weeks after Raghav's visit, we received a letter. It was from Priya, Raghav's daughter. The little girl who used to play in my father's office was now a woman in her 30s, a successful doctor as my father had mentioned. "Dear Uncle Mahesh," she wrote. "My father told me everything. About what he did to you. About what you did for us. I cannot express my shame at bearing his name, and my gratitude for your sacrifice. I want you to know that my brother and I have opened a trust fund in your name. We want to pay back what our father stole, with interest. We want to help support medical care for Auntie and ensure your retirement is comfortable. But more than the money, I want you to know this. I became a doctor because you used to tell me stories about helping people when I was little. You said the greatest thing a person could do was ease someone else's suffering. I took that to heart. I've set up a free clinic in one of Mumbai's poorest neighborhoods. Every patient I treat, every life I save, is a tribute to your kindness. You saved my family when you had every right to destroy us. I'm spending my life trying to be worthy of that gift." My father cried when he read that letter. Not from sadness, but from a kind of overwhelming validation. "You see, Beta," he said, his voice shaking. "This is what I mean. When you do the right thing, even when it costs you everything, the universe finds ways to balance the scales." Priya was true to her word. She and her brother insisted on repaying the money their father stole, adjusted for inflation and interest. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to ensure my parents' medical care and a comfortable retirement. But the real gift was something else. Through Priya's clinic, my father found a new purpose. He started volunteering there, using his people skills and his life experience to talk to patients who were struggling, who had lost hope, who needed someone to remind them that hard times don't last forever. He became a kind of counselor, a grandfather figure to the neighborhood. The man who lost his business and spent decades in quiet struggle became a beacon of hope for others facing their own dark times. One day, I went with him to the clinic. I watched him sit with a young man who'd just lost his job, talking quietly about resilience and dignity. I saw him comfort a mother worried about feeding her children, sharing our own story of struggle and survival. And I finally understood what revenge really looks like. It's not destruction. It's not making others suffer the way you suffered. True revenge is living so well, with such integrity and purpose, that you transform your suffering into something beautiful. Something that helps others. Something that proves the person who hurt you didn't break you, they just revealed how strong you really were. We heard about Raghav occasionally through Priya. He'd taken my father's words to heart. He found work as a financial consultant, using his business knowledge to help small entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes he'd made. He reconnected with his children, not as a father seeking redemption, but as a man accepting responsibility for his failures. He attended therapy. He volunteered at organizations helping people recover from bankruptcy and financial fraud. He would never fully repair what he'd broken. The years of betrayal and greed had carved scars too deep for complete healing. But he was trying. And according to Priya, That meant something to her and her brother. "He's not the father we needed," she told us once. "But he's becoming the man he should have been. Better late than never, I suppose?" My father nodded at this. "Redemption is possible for anyone who truly seeks it. It doesn't erase the past, but it can change the future." 3 years after that Sunday afternoon visit, my father passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 76 years old, surrounded by family, having lived to see me married and holding his first grandchild. At his funeral, the crowd was enormous. Patients from Priya's clinic, colleagues from his various jobs over the years, neighbors, friends, people whose lives he touched in ways we didn't even know about. And in the back, standing alone and looking older than his years, was Raghav. He didn't approach us, didn't offer condolences. He simply stood there, tears streaming down his face, watching as we celebrated a man who'd shown him more mercy than he deserved. As the ceremony ended, he approached me hesitantly. "Your father," Raghav said, his voice hoarse. "He saved my soul. I spent 25 years running from what I'd done, and one afternoon with him forced me to face it. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the forgiveness he gave me." I looked at this broken old man, and I felt something I never thought I'd feel toward him: compassion. "He already considered you worthy," I said. "That's why he forgave you. He saw the man you could become, not just the man you were." Raghav nodded, unable to speak. He placed a hand over his heart in respect and walked away. So what's the lesson here? What's the moral of this story that started with betrayal and ended with grace? I'll tell you what I learned from my father. The greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's refusing to let them destroy you. The truest strength isn't in striking back. It's in knowing when to show mercy. The deepest wisdom isn't in protecting yourself at all costs. It's in protecting others, even when it costs you everything. My father chose forgiveness not because Raghav deserved it, but because carrying hatred would have turned him into the same kind of man who hurt him. He chose integrity over vengeance, compassion over bitterness, long-term healing over short-term satisfaction. And in doing so, he didn't just save Raghav's family. He saved himself. He saved me. He saved everyone who knew him from inheriting his pain. They say living well is the best revenge. My father took that further. He lived so well, with such profound grace, that his revenge transformed into redemption, not just for himself, but for the man who wronged him. That's a level of humanity most of us can only aspire to. 25 years ago, Raghav took everything from us, or so I thought. But watching my father's life unfold, seeing the impact he had on countless people, witnessing the transformation he inspired in the very man who betrayed him, I realize now that Raghav took nothing that really mattered. Because you can take someone's money, their business, their comfort. But you can't take their character. You can't steal their integrity. You can't rob them of their capacity for love and forgiveness. Those things live in a place no betrayal can touch. If you're carrying anger towards someone who wronged you, I want you to ask yourself, is holding on to this rage making your life better? Or is it just giving them continued power over your peace? Forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was okay. It means you're choosing freedom over bondage. You're choosing to honor yourself more than you want to punish them. My father understood something profound. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. When you truly let go, you stop caring about revenge because you're too busy building something beautiful with your life. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about truth, betrayal, forgiveness, and the resilience of the human spirit. Tell me in the comments, have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it? What did that forgiveness do for you? And remember, your character isn't defined by what others do to you. It's defined by how you respond to what they do. Choose grace. Choose strength. Choose to be the person who rises above. Thank you for listening to my father's story. May his wisdom guide you as it continues to guide me. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.